Welcome to the Growth Through Adversity podcast, where men are forged, not coddled. Here we dive deep into the path of true transformation in pursuit of physical, mental, spiritual, and temporal growth. We talk training, nutrition, business, mindset, and spirituality. We embrace strength and we loathe ease. We reject weakness in every form and cultivate power, the will to power itself. This is the rebirth of modern man. Raw masculinity, tempered by reason, virtue, and right action, because nothing of value is earned without sacrifice. Let's begin our apotheosis together. Welcome to another episode of the Growth Through Adversity podcast with your host, Ragnar, the Warwolf. What is up, people? So today we're going to talk about strength. Last week we talked about muscle building or hypertrophy, these fancy nerd language. This week we're going to talk about strength. So number one, strength is not an accident. You got to learn how to build strength without wrecking your joints or your nervous system. And you've got to learn how to just stop spinning your wheels by loading plates in like an ego-driven fucking rage, right? There's a system to it that's going to help you do this smartly and effectively. If you don't do it right, you're going to keep lifting heavy but slow, wondering why you're not getting stronger. And you're going to stay in that like purgatory range of strongest, where you just kind of plateau out and you can't really break that threshold into the next levels. So where I want to start here is I want to try to define strength, right? So strength is force production. It is your body's ability to produce raw force, right? And the fundamental difference between strength and power is strength executed quickly, right? And so we're going to talk about why these two things matter instead of just the one, so that you can have a good, well-rounded strength profile. I've got to fucking mute these notifications. They drive me fucking crazy. But number one, when it comes to strength and power, strength is a skill. It's driven, obviously strength is largely determined by muscle mass and all kinds of things, but at its most fundamental level, strength is a skill. It's driven by your central nervous system and by motor learning. So most like power lifters peak in their 30s to 40s because it takes that long for them to become like truly technically proficient in these very complicated lifts. So this is something that you have to commit to practicing for years, right? It's not something that you're going to get overnight. Now that's the central nervous system. That's the neurological side of strength. And it's the root of strength. And it's the idea of why like a beginner, when they first start on their fitness journey, they see those really fast gains. They get way stronger, way faster. And then you kind of grow out of that, and it becomes much more difficult to make progress as you get deeper into your journey, because once you have those motor patterns and that motor learning down, and you have good neurological connection from the neurons in your brain to the motor units in your muscles, then that's when you have to start looking at the other components of strength, which is going to be building more muscle and just getting better and more proficient, more technical in these different lifts, right? And so that's going to be so strength is driven largely by fast twitch muscle fibers and therefore fast twitch motor units. So you have fast twitch muscle fibers, you have slow twitch muscle fibers. There's a couple different types of these. And strength is driven by those fast twitch muscle fibers. They're very explosive. They can be turned on and off very quickly. And so that's what we want to train when we're working on strength. And that's kind of where power comes into it. So power is, again, strength executed quickly. And so getting stronger is going to have a lot to do with speed and speed training. And we'll get into that more in a second, right? And one of like the biggest things that I want to take away from here is that from a functional standpoint, strength without speed is incomplete, right? If you're super strong, but you're not also fast, you're not also powerful, then you're kind of like cumbersome and you don't move really well and you're not very functional. So I like to train both of these with anybody that wants to put function at the top of their list of importance, at the top of their hierarchy of importance. So talking about strength specifically, what are the effective rep ranges for strength? Well, there's a lot of different effective rep ranges for strength. If you're overloading your muscles, you're going to get stronger, but there are ways that are much more effective for training strength, and that's going to be your lower end rep ranges. Somewhere in the 1 to 6 rep range is going to be the sweet spot for getting strong. And here's why. So this is where you're going to maximize neural efficiency. The CNS learns to fire hard. Again, that's a huge part of strength, is teaching your central nervous system how to turn on, from the neurons in your brain, how to turn on fast twitch motor units, and therefore activate a lot of fast twitch muscle fibers really fast and efficiently and in unison, so that you can move copious amounts of weight and create copious amounts of force instantaneously. This is also going to give you the highest mechanical tension, which is going to be a primary driver of strength, right? So the more load you put on a muscle, the more tension you create in a muscle, the stronger you're going to get over time. This is also going to teach your body. Again, this is the motor learning side of it. This is going to teach your body to coordinate force rather than just pump blood, right? So that's a huge part of strength, is teaching your body. That's why compound movements are the most effective for building strength, because we want to teach our body how to coordinate force, and that happens best when we're using compound type movements, right? So a specific breakdown. So 1 to 2 reps is your peak power range. This is very CNS dominant. You're going to use intracellular muscle or fuel directly in the muscles. You're going to have the highest power profile and the greatest ability to generate force on those first couple reps. So again, it's going to be highly into the power range of things. So 3 to 4 reps is going to be your peak strength range. This is going to be a blend of the central nervous system and muscle fiber recruitment. This is an awesome place to train. And then 4 to 6 reps is also great for strength. You're also going to see actually quite a bit of hypertrophy, and this is going to be best for repeated output. It's also, I think, easier to learn. And there's a little less of a danger curve when you're training in the 3 to 6 rep range versus the 1 to 2 rep range. And what I've really found with my clients is that if you're getting stronger in your 2, 3, 4 rep maxes, you're also getting stronger in your 1 rep max, and they can be a little bit more forgiving, just because it's not such a massive overload on both your central nervous system and your musculoskeletal system, and especially if your mechanics are not absolutely perfectly fucking flawless, right? So what is not going to be effective is super high reps. So 10 to 15 reps, in the beginning, anything will make you stronger, but for long term, for building strength, you're building conditioning, you're getting in closer into cardio ranges, and you're getting further and further away from strength. If we're looking at strength from a metabolic standpoint, what we want to really focus on are the energy pathways that are going to use cellular energy, that are going to use anaerobic energy, so energy that does not require oxygen to be replicated. So that's going to be the energy that's stored directly in your muscles or regenerated through the anaerobic pathways, and it's only going to be good for probably under a minute to 2 minutes absolute tops. So that's kind of the ranges that you want to train in. If you're doing 3-4 minute 30 rep sets, you're literally doing cardio. Like you're literally getting into cardiovascular work, which there's nothing wrong with. It's just not going to be effective for actually building strength. So this is where most dudes fuck it up. Strength training does not want failure reps. You don't have to go to war every single set like we do in our hypertrophy ranges, and it's actually not as effective. What it really wants is clean, crisp, and explosive reps, right? So when I really work on strength, I focus most of my working sets on a 7 to 8 RPE rather than a 9 to 10 RPE like I do when I'm working on my on like hypertrophy and muscle growth. We want it hard enough to stimulate adaptation, but light enough to maintain bar speed and low enough to actually recover, right? So that becomes super important with strength. Also, your rest periods have to be longer because we have to allow that cell. If we're focusing on true strength and we're using intracellular energy, anaerobic energy, it takes a very long time, upwards of 8 minutes, for your body to restore that post set. So you have to be resting in between your sets for a much longer time than you would be under other circumstances. So why we avoid the RPE 9 to 10 or going all the way to failure. So this absolutely skyrockets central nervous fatigue, which is already going to be super high because we're already putting such a massive fucking demand on the central nervous system. Another thing we're going to see is bar speed is going to drop, and you're going to start to train yourself to get slower and slower and slower. And obviously, unless your mechanical patterns are absolutely flawless and perfect, the closer you get to failure, the higher your injury risk climbs in compound movements. And progress is going to stall because your recovery dies. Recovery is so important when you're putting this much strain and this much stress on your central nervous system. It's going to take you a while to recover from work like this. So some of the pros of training at a little lower of an intensity when focusing on strength specifically is you're going to see yourself get stronger week to week. So in strength training, we really don't want to focus on like everybody's favorite metric at the gym is like how sore you are the next day as the test of like how good their fucking workout was. And especially with strength, but really just in general too, it's a horrible metric to use. What you should actually be watching is progressive overload, is if you're actually getting stronger on a week to week basis, is if you're actually able to add more load to the bar, add more reps on a week to week basis, then that means your programming's actually working. Doesn't really matter how fucking sore you are when you leave the gym. If you can't walk the next day, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I'm saying if that's the only metric you're using to measure your workouts, then you're focusing on completely the wrong thing. So you need to stay fresher for the next session. So obviously we want to keep the frequency up. So we don't want to have to rest for 3 weeks. But if you totally gut your central nervous system out, like I see a lot of guys when they're working on strength, they just continue to do their 1 rep max over and over and over and over again every single workout, and they think they're getting stronger. Usually it starts to go down and deteriorate pretty quickly. You've got to build up to that. You've got to taper up to that, and you've got to let your body recover between sessions. And it's not going to be able to do that if you're taking yourself all the way to failure on strength reps, on 1 rep, 2 rep maxes every single week. Also, like, be nice to your joints. For us guys that are, 40 to 60 years old, our joints have taken some abuse. So if you're going to be training for strength, there's nothing wrong with that. It's really good, but you definitely want to train hard, but you also want to train smart because we don't want to fucking tear ourselves up any more than we need to. So if you ignore it and you just go in there and you go balls to the wall to failure every single week, every single workout, what's going to happen is you're going to burn out, you're going to plateau, but you're going to walk around. I mean, you'll look really cool when you walk around bragging about how hard you're grinding and how sore you are every workout, while still saying the same. We're still not getting stronger. We're still not adding any weight to the bar. We're still not hitting any new PRs, which to me is just like dumb. It's the opposite of what you're really trying to do. So effective volume for strength. This is going to be super important as well. Strength doesn't want super high volume. The same concepts we just talked about in the previous section are going to apply. We want effective volume, right? So an effective strength volume is like absolute, like I really like the 8 to like 14 total working reps per movement pattern per session. Obviously, like on the weeks that you go extra hard, you're going to be on the bottom of that. On the weeks that you go a little less hard, you can be on the topper end to that. So, for example, like 4 sets by 3 reps, 5 sets by 2 reps. So, and again, we're training at a little bit lower of an RPE. We're training not necessarily taking ourselves all the way to failure on those reps. We're focusing on getting better mechanically. We're getting better motor patterns, and we're getting stronger on a week-to-week basis. We're adding weight to the bar every single week. Also like total weekly volume. So like 6 to 12 sets per lift pattern. So squat, hinge, press, pull. These are going to be the big movements that you do. You can vary them, but those are good. I mean, that's obviously what's going to build strength, the big compound type movements. And you only need 6 to 12 sets per lift per one of these patterns. So again, the volume doesn't have to be super crazy. Common mistake is people do way too many sets and they just totally crush their recovery, right? So then you're breaking your body down, but you're not building it back up and you're not giving it time to recover. So you're not getting the adaptations that you want. If you do way too few on the other end of that spectrum, you're going to have the same problem. You're not going to have enough stimulus for adaptation. So why my clients grow faster is we keep the volume in the strength sweet spot when we go through these strength blocks. Holy shit, I can't talk. And every rep has intention and speed. We've got 0 junk reps, we've got 0 junk sets, and we've got 0 junk volume. Everything is effective, right? And that is super important. So now another missing link that I see pretty commonly is power training, right? So again, power is speed multiplied by force, and you need both. You need strength and you need power, especially for function, especially if you're an athlete, especially if you're somebody that wants to be functional, that wants to move well, that wants to be explosive and dangerous and fast, right? So how to train power is on the big compound lifts. What we're going to do is we're going to lower the loads just a little bit. And we're going to work on speed reps. So we're going to control the eccentric and we're going to explode on the concentric or the positive part of the rep. I like somewhere in like the 2 to 5 rep range for most of these sets. And then you're going to take this is also very important. You're going to take full recovery between those sets. So whether that takes 5 minutes or 8 minutes, we're going to make sure our body is fully restored and we're using that intercellular fuel to have massive, massive explosion on these reps, right? So example, you can do this speed squats, speed deadlifts, bench press, virtually anything. Another thing that's going to be very effective that I like to use is plyometrics. So box jumps, clapping push-ups, anything where it's an explosive, jumping lunges, anything where it's an explosive type movement. And again, the difference between plyometrics and power training and conditioning is you're going to do those movements and then you're going to fully recover from them, right? Whereas in conditioning, you're just going to do another set back to back to back to back, and you're going to gas out your VO2 max and you're going to gas out your cardiovascular system. Whereas this, we're trying to gas out the muscles without killing the cardiovascular system and letting ourselves recover and have those really, really powerful, explosive reps. So this is going to make you more explosive, and this is one of the main drivers of athleticism. Your CNS is going to learn to fire like a fucking lightning bolt, and you're just going to move better. You're going to move faster. You're going to have faster reflexes. This is, like I said, very, very important for athletes or people that are focused on function and being overall functional. If you skip this, you're going to move around with stiffness and you're going to be strong on paper, but weak in motion and weak in activities, right? Which is virtually useless, right? So, and then the kind of last thing that we have to talk about here is nutrition, right? So nutrition for strength, we'll start with protein, and it's just like anything else. Like always say, a gram per pound of body weight. There's no reason not to. You can go as low as 0.8 if you're in a surplus. But why? I mean, it doesn't hurt you to eat a gram of fucking protein per pound of body weight. It's not hard to do, although some people disagree with me on that. But it is definitely going to give you ample. It's definitely going to give you ample nutrition to repair muscle, repair connective tissue, and support the CNS output. Just by doubling some of my clients' intake, we have really seen their lifts jump, and we've seen them just overall their physique change at a very, very rapid rate. Number 2, now that's easy. That's common sense. Carbohydrates. This is where people fuck up. Carbohydrates are the absolute king for strength. This is where like literally 90% of dudes sabotage themselves because they want to do these stupid ass low carb diets. But carbs are your primary source of fuel. They're your body's preferred source of fuel and for all high threshold activity. So everything that occurs over like 60, definitely 65, 70%. Max intensity, that includes heavy lifting, CNS performance, fast twitch, muscle fiber output, power production. All of that is dependent on carbohydrates for fuel, right? So strength, carbs to focus on that are going to help with that are going to be, just the simple carbs, the complex carbs. So rice, potatoes, oats, fruits, if you like bagels, wraps. You can do honey around training if you want some faster stuff that absorbs. You can do dextrose intra-workout. But what we want to make sure is that we're getting a high carbohydrate diet because low carbs and strength simply don't mix. If you have no glycogen, you have no power. Glycogen comes from glucose from carbohydrates. If you have no glycogen, you have no recovery, right? Your cortisol levels go through the roof. And if we're beating the fuck out of our central nervous system and trying to make sure that our central nervous system can fully recover and our immune system can fully recover from these brutal fucking strength workouts that we're doing, then you need to supply your body with the carbohydrates that are going to help to negate the cortisol effect after training. So no glycogen, you're going to have that really high CNS fatigue that's going to hit you like a truck, the so-called wall in training, and you're going to be ineffective, really, is what's going to happen. So like if you're training on a low carb diet, you're basically trying to build like a skyscraper with no fucking concrete, right? So Here is a good template for strength, just to keep it super simple. One main lift, 1 to 6 reps, RPE 7 to 8, 3 to 6 strength sets, 1 to 2 power primers, a couple of accessories in the hypertrophy ranges, so higher rep ranges, just to kind of accessorize your main lifts. Carb heavy pre and post training, protein high all day. So it's very simple. If you follow that check mark, you will be in a good position. And that's kind of all I've got here today. So, like I said, we went through muscle building last week. We decided we went through strength today. We're kind of on this series now where we're going through different training modalities. And I wanted to cover strength for you guys because I get a lot of questions about it, especially from my athletes. And so there you guys have it, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this. You guys have a great fucking week. I will see you again on Thursday.